Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about Haitian Revolution, which is known as one of the most successful revolutions in history. But is it really? Let's get straight into it. Who revolted and why did they revolt? First, let's look at the causes. The main reason for the Haitian Revolution was the inequalities between the social classes in the society of Saint-Domingue, the old name of Haiti. There were four main classes: Grand Blancs, rich white people who owned plantations and slaves; Petit Blancs, who were poor white people in general; Mulattoes, people born between white slave owners and black slave mothers, who were usually freed by their fathers. They were mostly rich, but racially discriminated by whites and rejected by blacks because they didn't belong in either race. Free middle-class blacks, most of whom were people of mixed African and European ancestry. They hoped to end legal racial discrimination and sought to participate in democratic politics, according to David P. Gega's website article. Black slaves that come from Africa, were not treated as human, had no rights, and were badly discriminated and abused by white people.
Depending on the social classes, groups of Haitians launched different kinds of revolutions for various reasons. In the beginning, Grand Blancs, Petit Blancs, and Mulattoes launched rebellions on their own to achieve various reasons, but we should really focus on the main part of Haitian Revolution, the revolt of the slaves.
So, as we can see, slavery was the main cause of this particular revolution. But why? Why was slavery bad? What was the problem with slavery? Obviously, it encouraged and practiced serious violations upon fundamental human rights. The slave owners would hit them, force them, lock them up, and even sell their children. The biggest problem was that although these slave owners were committing such inhumane actions, the slaves couldn't do anything but get victimized. And according to Franklin Knight, this created the concept of superiority amongst people. What does this mean? Although they were born to be equal, they thought some people are superior over others, while others were inferior depending on their skin color, race, and given condition, which were simply inborn. Not only this was inhumane, surprisingly, this was also inefficient. Why was that? Firstly, slaves took up 90% of the whole population in the area. But remember, these slaves were not even counted as citizens population because they were simply properties owned by someone else. They were not allowed to voice out, share their opinions, or even be involved in any kind of social activities. So when 90% of the whole population were slaves who were not invited to any kind of talk in the society, only about 10% of the population had to carry every single issue in the nation. Secondly, the cost of maintaining the slaves were even higher than hiring free employees. Surprising, but think about it. Although they did abuse their slaves, the slave owners were still responsible of supplying them with food, shelter, and basic necessities. And this cost a lot. Very inefficient, but they thought this is how it was meant to be back then.
How did the slaves overthrow the government? After witnessing these revolts, the slaves now decided to have their own rebellion. This was the main part of the Haitian Revolution. Although they knew that the Declaration of Rights of Men did not apply to them, they pretended that it did apply and vigorously used violence and executions to achieve their goals. How did they do that? According to Valentino Peguero, the uprising of slaves erupted at the end of August 1791. It began in the northern plantations under the direction of Boukman Duty, Jean Francois, George Bassot, and especially Toussaint Louverture. Boukman, a voodoo priest, gave the signal to begin the insurrection by burning down plantations, killing, and looting. The slaves destroyed plantations and towns, devastating much of northern Saint-Domingue, according to David P. Gega's website article. How did the government respond? The slaves during the revolt were able to defeat the mulatto resistance. They even chased their leader Rigaud out to France. However, there was a second French troop invasion from the revolutionary government who tried to put down the slave revolt, but they failed. A war in Europe made the French Revolution's government abolish slavery to keep the slaves happy and to stop Saint-Domingue from going to Britain or Spain, according to David P. Gega's website. However, Valentina Peguero quoted, while Toussaint was establishing common administrative principles to govern both sides of the island at the end of January 1802, Napoleon Bonaparte sent a military expedition commanded by Victor E. Leclerc, his brother-in-law, to re-establish slavery and French control over the entire island of Hispaniola. Napoleon's military captured their leader Toussaint Louverture and tried to reset the revolution. At the end, though, Napoleon's attempt failed and the slaves led by Dessalines were able to grab victory with the help of the yellow fever and military skills.
How did the revolution cause change? The Haitian Revolution was successful in a lot of ways because it brought lots of change. Firstly, black slaves gained their freedom and formed the first independent country completely made up of free people, and the first black republic in the world. It was unique because black slaves who were not even considered human managed to get equality and freedom for everyone in the country. Second, they showed that slaves could be freed, and it was the first modern country where the Declaration of the Rights of Man was actually applied, when France, the country where it came from, failed to apply it to their society. This inspired lots of other colonies to fight for their own freedom. Finally, it was the first victory against racism, which inspired colored people all around the world and weakened the idea that some races were superior over the others. It also showed that it was possible to make a united and disciplined army, despite the harsh conditions of slavery, according to Digna Castañeda Fuertes. However, it was also unsuccessful in some ways. After the revolution, Jean-Jacques Dessalines became the chief of state, and later declared himself emperor, which was like the French government that Haiti was ruled by before. When Dessalines became emperor, he ruled by fear and killed almost all the white people in the country, ruling as a dictator until he got assassinated, according to Matt Clavin. Also, even though black slaves had caused the revolution, since the mulattoes, mixed-race people, were able to have more opportunities to be educated due to their white fathers, they became the ones who dominantly led the nation even after the revolution. Although it officially solved inequality in social system, there were still remains of the social injustice. Finally, the colonial empires in Europe didn't want Haiti's ideas against slavery and colonization to spread, so they made Haiti go in serious debt by making them pay for damages. This prevented Haiti from having the complete freedom that they wanted, because now they were ruled economically by other countries. However, all of Haiti's current problems were not caused by the revolution. The revolution itself was a success because slaves revolted to get social equality, and they got what they wanted. Current situation and long-term effects of the revolution. You might have noticed that Haiti is one of the poorest countries in the world and is considered as a failed state. More than 50% of their citizens are under the poverty line and is suffering from starvation. We thought of some main reasons why the first racially fair republic turned out like this.
Firstly, other powerful countries in Europe didn't want Haiti's success to inspire their other colonies, so they made Haiti pay for damages done by the slaves to the colonies and made them seriously in debt. This gave them economic power over Haiti just when they got political freedom. Secondly, by the 1840s, which was almost immediately after the revolution, Haiti was achieving a slow but stable level of development. They were the richest state out of all colonies, especially compared to other Latin American colonies, but they were very vulnerable to natural disasters because most of their citizens did farming for their living in Haiti. In conclusion, we think that although it was not perfect in the long term, this revolution was successful in general in achieving social equality and holds significant value for officially solving racial discrimination all around the world. If you enjoyed our video, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to give us 100 in our Power School. Thanks for watching!